to our pod, and by that I mean on Wednesdays we read. I'm Hannah,
I'm Laura.
and we are two best friends who do a deep dive into a new book series, one book at a time. Right now it is Bum Bum Bum, The Year of the Dresden.
Of the Dresden.
We are reading and finishing up the plot of the first book, Stormfront of the Dresden Files by Jim Butcher.
Jimothy.
Jimothy? May I call you Jimothy?
May I call you Jim? James. Jimothy.
Jimothy.
May I call you Jim?
Jimothy, please. Jimothy, this
I
last
tried
year...
that on someone recently, called them, their name is Jim, and I called them Jimothy. And the way that they looked at me was the best.
That is amazing.
They clearly do not watch The Office.
So my roommate often says, "What's the situation?" And I always go, "Your parents went away on a week's vacation."
I love that cold open.
It's my
so
favorite
much.
cold open of all time. I sometimes watch it on YouTube to like for a little pick me up, and I cry
It's
laughing
great.
over that cold open. It is the funniest cold open I've ever seen. Someone is
Well,
on fire in
someone
Ramsett
is
Park.
on fire in Ramsett Park.
Oh
Oh my
my
gosh.
gosh.
That's one of the funniest things I've like ever seen.
They left the brand new keys to the Porsche. Would they mind? Well, of course not. I'll just
Another
take it
really
for a
good cold
little
open
spin.
though, like propaganda, but Brooklyn
Brooklyn
Nine-Nine,
Nine-Nine.
the cold open where they're singing or no,
Oh my
singing the
gosh.
Backstreet Boys song.
Yeah. Tell me
Now number
why.
5. And then
Ain't nothing but a heartache. And then she's
then
like,
she says, that one. That's the one who killed my brother. Oh my God, I forgot.
I forgot why we were here.
I forgot why we were here.
I love that one. And also the
Oh,
why is Amy late bet that they did.
that one's really good too.
I forgot why we were here. Cold
I think the
opens are
whole
just like very
dancing
unique.
is a cold open also,
Oh, is
where
it?
he's like, I've got to diffuse the situation. And then he's like, situation diffused. And I'm like, the way that he answers that so robotically. I miss you so much, Andre.
Oh, say
Miss you so
that.
much. Oh, he was so
Uh,
great.
I just said something. I just was texting Veronica and I used the term Twitter pated. And she goes, "What's that from?" And I go, "Bambi." And she goes, "Terrible ending." Or like, "Oh, what a sad
Oh,
moment." Or she goes, "Oh, what a sad moment." And I was like, wow, that is a like harsh like jump. We were also, I'm not gonna spoil it because we just added it to my movie list of things that
mhm,
Paul has never seen. We have wasps out in our backyard.
mhm,
And we're trying to find the wasps' nest so we can, get rid of the area.
mhm.
And I almost made a My Girl joke, and I was like, "Have you guys seen My Girl?" And they both were like, "No."
I've
Both
never seen that
people in my
either.
house, "You've never seen My Girl?"
I don't think so. What is My
So
Girl?
it's Macaulay Culkin as Thomas J and a young girl, I forget her name, Chomsky.
Oh,
Um
Sarah Chomsky.
uh
Oh, Anna
is it
Chomsky. I'm sorry.
Anna Chomsky. Yeah, Anna Chomsky. And it's like a
From Veep. Yeah.
yes, and it's a coming of age story about like an 11-year-old girl whose dad works and like he has them live in his mortuary.
So I definitely recognize this movie, but I have not seen it that I can recall.
Oh, so
It might be a movie that
good.
I could watch and be like, oh, I think I recognize scenes from this. Because
I
I feel like
it's
sometimes I have seen movies like or portions of them and I'm like, yeah,
mhm.
I feel like I walked through when someone had this on.
I've watched this movie so many times, and the amount of people like, and there's a My Girl, and then there's a My Girl 2, where she's like all grown up, I guess, quote unquote.
Hmm.
And I used to watch those movies on freaking repeat. So you should watch it, but only if you're in the right mental headspace. So,
Okay.
AKA, not this week for
I
Hannah.
guess not. That'll have to wait.
So I was thinking about that. I was like, oh, we should watch that tonight. And I was like, I would be sobbing on the couch. I am not
Hmm.
okay today.
Nice thought, but
But nope, 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 nope.
unfortunately I'm in more of a Parks and Rec space. So
Yeah. But for other things you could be reading, watching, and or enjoying, Laura, what's going on with you?
okay, so keep going with my Comey Can't Communicate journey.
Oh.
I read a few more volumes, 9 through 10, or nine, 8, 9, and 10 of Comey Can't Communicate. And 10, I think, was probably my favorite so far of this.
Oh.
And it's because we're introducing like new characters to the series, and it's actually like kind of pushing the limits of like her communication disorder, and
Hmm.
she's starting to grow and become a little more comfortable like reaching out to people and inviting people over to like spend time with her. And I really appreciated the way that it was like a new character who also had some insecurities and was a different type of character than the others in the series, where it wasn't always like someone who was super outgoing and very confident with themselves, who was just like, come on, we're doing this. And it's kind of nice to see that people with communication disorders can also have relationships with people who are very insecure about changes in their lives or their appearance or what have you, and be uncomfortable reaching out and making friends themselves. And so I thought
Yeah.
that was really nice. However, this book is still on with the boob thing, and this series is still on with the boob thing. And for that reason alone, I had a major groan moment and was like, this was gonna be 4 stars, but I think it's back down to 3 because I'm so annoyed with these moments of with like over sexualizing these teenagers like that.
Yeah.
And I'm kind of at the point where I'm like, I've rated almost all of these 3 stars,
Mm.
and I'm like,
Hmm.
have I reached a point where I'm just like, there's not a ton of growth happening with the main character, and this is a really long series too. I think there's like 30 volumes or close to it. And I'm like, can I put up with this just not really developing much? Like it took 10
Right.
volumes for there to be like a major like, oh, something is happening here. Like the friend group is kind of disrupted a little bit, and it's not the
Hmm.
typical like this one always gets everybody all connected together because she's the outgoing one, and this one is the one they always are friends with 5,000 people and they've known everyone for the longest time, and he's the one that's always understanding. And it's like, okay, but now we've finally switched it up a little bit where it's a little more interesting. But at the same time, I'm just like, how many more volumes are we gonna have of just like this exact same thing now? And
Yeah.
also just like that weird like undertones of the let's compare whose boobs were the best is just, I don't like that.
Do you think there's something to it? And like, obviously, it can still be problematic, but this is more just a general question. Do you think it's something where it's like typically these books aren't coming out as fast? So a lot of times, if you're coming back to it, like you're not like a
I
lot of
don't
people
know the
typically
speed
aren't
which
binging.
these are coming out at. I think they come out, I would guess that the volumes come out at a slower pace, but the issues within them come out
Hmm.
fairly regularly. So I don't know how quickly the volumes are coming out, but I feel like the issues have to come out f- at least on a regular basis because this is an ongoing series.
Yeah,
But
I wasn't sure. I wasn't sure if it was like, well, if there's like any amount of gaps in time, then people aren't like
mhm,
binging it and reading it and reading it. They're like, oh, I'm coming
right.
back to these characters. So it's a little bit more palatable, even if it's still
And
problematic. I was just wondering.
I
Yeah,
do enjoy the series. Like obviously I've read 10 volumes. It's not like I hate it.
right.
And it's also just one of those like kind of slice of life. You like appreciate certain things about it, but at the same time, there are definitely problematic moments because, and like I say, the biggest thing with this is that bugs me is that this is a book about teenagers and we're rating their boobs and comparing the boobs. And then, like in this one specifically, there was like an overnight stay and they were like comparing the packages of the male characters, and I'm just like, I just feel uncomfortable with that's a storyline in
Yeah, that's
this high
awkward.
school series. I don't know how I feel about that. That just seems uh, not quite right to me
Right.
because the
Yeah,
characters are minors. So
that's
I
fair.
I don't know. But I think I'm just gonna have to take a break from that for a while at the very least, if not a long, long break, just
Yeah,
because it, yeah, not a lot's happening, and I just don't like that being thrown in every now and then. It's just not
that's
comfy
fine.
with me,
Not
not comfy. But I also read another graphic novel. This was a middle grade graphic novel. You might have seen it. It came out recently. It's called Haru, Book One by
I think
Joe
I
Latham.
recognize that.
it's got like a cute little like pig on the cover with like a mushroom and a bird on its back.
Yeah, I recognize that.
Yeah, I think I've seen people talking about it on Instagram, but I recognized the cover when I was just like searching on Libby because oh, I've been kind of like having a hard time getting reading in recently.
Hmm.
And a lot of times just manga or graphic novels just to like read something in one sitting or like before I go to bed is just kind of mindless and easy for me where it's just like
Right.
I don't have to think a lot about what's happening or who's doing what right now. I can just like read this middle grade graphic novel and then go to bed. And this one was an interesting book. So this is the author's debut, and I will say I really appreciate the art style. Like I this is the type of art I'm drawn to where it's like very much like a watercolory nature
Mm.
filled story. I really appreciated the animals, the mushrooms. I liked how the art style looked in this. And then a lot of like the bigger scenes that you see of like the mountains and the landscapes, those are really beautiful. The thing that was like weird about this book was that I felt like it couldn't make up its mind. Like,
Mm.
so the overall idea of the story I thought was okay. And it's like a fantasy story. And I also appreciated that like the main character is a non-binary protagonist.
Oh,
Okay.
that's fun.
So that was good. But the story, I feel like the author wanted to touch on things that middle graders are going through, like bullying and identity and some and grief and some heavier topics that when they tried to incorporate them into also a fantasy story that starts off like in the beginning, darkness was doing this and the light was doing this. But then they didn't know how to like combine them in the right way because it almost felt like you were getting what I put in my review on Goodreads was the book seemed to oscillate between an epic fantasy story and a modern struggle of some friends who are bullied at school and struggle with grief. And I don't feel like these storylines had to be mutually exclusive, but they were. And the book was
Interesting.
confusing,
Yeah.
especially if you followed the conversations between the characters, because the way that it was drawn, you could follow the story like, oh, they're traveling through here. But then, like, just suddenly they'd say something like, remember when that kid bullied me in school? That made me feel really bad. Wait a minute. We were just talking about this journey that we're on. Where did this come from? This was just like so out of the blue. And the dialogue was just kind of it seemed out of place at times and
Yeah.
a little strange. And I'm giving it the benefit of the doubt that this is just something that maybe the author is going to kind of work on and kind of step into a little more in future volumes. So I think I'll continue with the series when the next volume comes out, especially because I did like the art and because I think the overall story is a good idea, but
Okay.
it's I think this is just kind of one of those things where sometimes authors trying to bring these themes in that they want to incorporate into their story do have trouble with it. And I guess I've never
Right.
realized how difficult that can be and how some authors make it so seamless, but
Right.
others really struggle, especially when they're trying to make a fantasy story with non-human characters who are trying to depict human struggles. And
Right.
I think it was just a little bit of a too big of a swing for
Mm.
this story at the moment. But hopefully in future volumes, the author will kind of tie it up a little more, make it a little bit tighter, I guess,
Yeah.
and kind
And I
of
mean,
make things mesh a little. And maybe they don't need to. I There are probably other people that are like, this was great. And also it's intended for a young audience. And maybe these things need to be a little more separate for a younger audience.
yeah, I mean that's always a good note, but it could also be a little bit of debut novel stuff or just all of
Yeah.
it and in between. So,
And that's why I'm trying to just like kind of say, you know what, I'm gonna give benefit of the doubt here. I'm gonna continue on and read the next one when it comes out. But this was a little confusing to read at times because just a little disjointed and a little. eh, I don't
Yeah.
know.
Yeah, that's
But
fair.
it was interesting. I think if you want to check out like a quick read and you want to look at something pretty, that would be worth it. But as far as like recommending the story itself, I can't say because it didn't click for me all the time.
Good to know.
And then another one, I don't think I ever mentioned this one. I don't know how I skipped this, but I did a buddy read with dear friend Passett. I
Ooh.
listened to Sweet Pea by CJ Skews,
Oh my gosh,
and
that's been like one of his
Passett
like
loves
major
this
like
book,
yeah, he does.
and it was pretty good. I
Oh good.
I rated it 4 stars. Um,
Hmm.
this is a story about a woman named Rhiannon, and Rhiannon is a serial killer.
Hmm.
She is someone who I think is a really interesting study. We get, like, when I was listening to the book, we get her perspective in a different way that I feel like if you find it hard to connect with characters, this is maybe a book that if you can read books via audio, this is maybe a better format to try and connect with the main character more because I felt like, and Passett and I talked about this, that if I would have read this book like the physical or ebook edition, I do not feel like I would have connected at all or had any kind of empathy or sympathy for Rhiannon.
Yeah.
Because as a serial killer, she does a lot of terrible things. But when you get her perspective, get to be inside her own head and can hear that narrator using Rhiannon's voice, it does help you to kind of connect with her more. And
Okay.
as you get into the story, I'm not going to give away too much because if somebody wants to read this, I don't want to spoil it. But I do think that as you kind of get into the story a little, you are given information that humanizes Rhiannon and you start to understand how she became the way she did. And I
Okay.
think it's also just like the way that we were talking about this, it was really just kind of an interesting discussion on what makes people the way they are, whether
Yeah.
that be nature versus nurture, and or if it's just, some people just want to
Some
be
people
bad,
have that. Yeah.
you know?
Some people want to murder other people.
Some people just want to be bad. And
Yeah.
so I think it was an interesting book if you are someone who likes to kind of dissect the motivations that
Hmm.
people have in their lives. And I also will say that from the standpoint of someone who I am someone who finds it like difficult to connect with people and like get frustrated with others. Rhiannon is also one of these people that is like this and has a hard time connecting with people, obviously, like sociopath, but it's still very relatable to read about some of the things that are happening to Rhiannon because she deals with like microaggressions and
Mm.
sexism and issues within different groups that she's in, whether that's at work or within friend groups. And she's treated poorly. And the way that she has to kind of mask or get herself out of situations is an interesting thing to read about as well.
Yeah.
And I think also relatable, not to the standpoint of like is going as far as she goes, but I think a lot of people can relate to being in situations like that, especially like at work. I noticed a lot of the things that like people were saying to her. I'm like, oh yeah, that is crappy that people are like that and
Right.
say things like that, like totally relatable, or having frustrations just with random people that you interact with that will, as it says right on the cover, just call you sweet pea when
Yeah.
you don't know them. You don't need that kind of weird comment to be made.
Yeah.
But very interesting character study. And I would recommend the audiobook if you're
Hmm.
interested in this. I will say, though, it does get pretty heavy with obviously it's a book about a murderer.
Right.
So please look up content warnings to make sure that you're in an okay space to read this book. But I thought it was pretty good, and I would recommend it, honestly.
Oh, good.
So, especially the audiobook.
Okay, good to know.
And then as far as watching, I've been slowly watching Shogun with my husband.
Oh my gosh, we watched the first episode and then I fell asleep during the second one, and Paul's been dying to continue watching it, and I keep like not being able to watch the
My
next
husband slows me
episode.
down where he
Okay.
wants to watch it with me and he's like, "Don't watch it without me." And so a lot of times like he'll get home kind of late or something and I'm like, "Do you want to watch this?" He's like, "I'm kind of too tired to watch it." I'm like, "Okay, come on." But we've watched 4 episodes of it and it's a really good show. Really good. And phenomenal acting. I would really like to cover it at some point for a
I'm,
TV Tuesday.
I'm sure
We're
we
just
will.
continually adding to our TV Tuesday list. Like this list is out of control.
We need to just start doing this podcast full time and then we can do all of this
Yes,
stuff.
like
But
and
uh
that is real, and then it's not just suggestions. But Shogun is a really good TV show. If anybody hasn't heard of it, I don't know how you haven't heard of it because everyone's talking about it. Really good, and I can't wait to finish it. So.
I can't
Hannah,
wait
that's
to
about all I've
start.
got though. I've just kind of been rewatching things besides slowly making it through Shogun.
Fair enough. I mean, I really want to watch Shogun. I keep like not being in the mood to read subtitles. Like I am a big multitasker, and this isn't
Hmm.
to I believe in subtitled shows. I really like that they're having it subtitled. I really enjoy that.
Hmm.
But sometimes it's hard when you're used to watching TV with a Nintendo Switch in your hand and you're a
I also am
multitasker.
someone who like has to be holding on to something or like I'm often like scrolling on my phone or
Hmm.
something as I'm quote unquote watching TV. And that is an issue. I need to be better about like focusing my attention fully on the thing that I'm doing.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, at the moment, like there's not too many things where I'm like, especially if I'm sitting, where I'm like completely focused in. I am very much somebody that's like, if I'm sitting down working, even I'm like listening to a podcast or an audiobook, there's always like multiple things happening.
Hmm.
And like if I'm cooking, I'm also listening to a TV show or cleaning. There's a TV show or a podcast happening. Like there's
Right.
very rarely not multiple things going on. And I am not
Exactly.
somebody who just sits down and watches a TV show very often. But when I'm watching this with my husband, I figured out that the best way to do this, Hannah, is to eat while you are
Mm.
watching this show because then my hands have food in them and I'm not tempted to scroll my phone. And then I do watch the subtitles and
Yeah.
can follow along easily.
Well, that's good. I'm glad I will. I mean, we eat dinner, but I think usually we're like, oh, we're sitting down to dinner. We're focused on eating. Let's turn on Psych. And it's like, well,
Hmm.
we could have
We do that a lot, but this is a
yeah.
good show for us so far to watch while eating dinner. The people that are listening, there's going to be some people that are like, "You're not supposed to watch
Okay,
TV while you eat dinner."
who is saying that? Come on.
People
Who?
say
Like,
that all the time on social media, Hannah. Do you not see this kind of stuff where it's like people giving all of their life advice where they're just like, you need to sit down at the table to eat every single meal. And I'm like, you know what? I do for a lot of meals, but not every single meal, especially if I'm just like kind of wanting to zone out. I want to sit on the
no,
couch and
I don't.
watch
You know what?
TV while I'm eating.
It's not early 2000s anymore, people. Get over yourselves. We all are addicted to
For some
phones. We
reason, I
all
feel
are
like
addicted
people
to
think that
everything.
it's like
Like,
some indication of like health and wellness if you sit at the table and eat. I don't understand
I'm
it, but
sorry.
these things
I
are kind of
can't
tied together when people are like, you need to wake up at 4 a.m. to work out for 2 hours before work. And then you also need to sit at the table for all of your meals. And I'm like, who has the time?
Here's the thing. I can't hear you over my bowl of veggie and bean stew that I mostly make because my fiance is vegan. Guess what?
Mhm.
I will eat as many bowls of vegetables as I want to in front of a television. It's
Yeah.
fine.
Hannah, I'm not disagreeing with eating in front of a TV. I've just told you I did it. I'm just saying that
That's then people
I'm
need to
sure there are
go
people that are
go
listening. They're
touch
like, you only should really sit at the table when you eat.
go touch grass.
What
My
is
table is full of
grass?
other things. Yeah, what is grass? It's what you say that you go eat your dinner outside in grass then, I guess, if that's what you really want. Be
Isn't
one
that
with
interesting
nature.
though, how there are like so many like quote unquote things that quote unquote healthy things that have kind of like infiltrated certain spheres where people are like, you must do these things in order to live a long, healthy life. It's like, yeah,
And
but
it's
also
all
there's people who do
tied to
none of those
capitalism.
things
Yeah.
and they live forever.
Yeah. It's almost like we can't control how long we'll live. And we're all
Hmm.
just in the same capitalistic hellscape where they push wellness on us and really mean thinness
You know
and
what's
spending
interesting?
lots of
This is
money.
going to start a whole, I'm going to start a whole thing with this, but uh, I had mentioned something about like feeling tired, and somebody said something to me about, well, you should get up early and work out. That'll make you feel better. And I'm like, I don't have the time to get up early and work out. And I said, I don't think that people understand that the way that this is being pushed and the people that are pushing this are privileged people who can say that privileged
Hmm.
people who either maybe have a job where they can like work from home or work
Hmm.
late or arrive at work late,
Yep.
or they work, or they're like people who are stay-at-home moms who can be more flexible with their schedules and can say, oh, yes, I got up at 4 in the morning, but also I don't have to be at work until such and such time, or I'm able to do this from this point to this point. And I'm like, it's very much a privileged stance to kind of put yourself on a pedestal in the schedule that you can hold on a pedestal and claim that it's for health and not recognize that it's actually a privilege that a lot of people don't have because many people have to go to work at 4 a.m. or
Hmm.
they maybe are just tired and can't do these things in the morning or whenever, you're trying to fit them into your schedule because they have obligations and are kept down and need to make money. So
Yeah.
yeah, it's
No, agreed.
it's not just a matter. I will also say like thinness is pushed by society, but it's also a matter of like people trying to claim that you're. It's just because you're not making the time. If you just made the time, it's like okay, but people can make the time, but they still have to do all these other things, and then they will be sacrificing their health if they're adding additional things in here because then they're not getting enough sleep. Things have to, like, some people, there's not enough time in the day because unfortunately the world doesn't work in their favor
Right.
and class issues
Well,
are
like,
real. So
yeah, that's very true. Nope, agreed. Um,
I may have brought this up before. I can't remember now. It's all a blur to me at this point. Hannah, what have you been reading and watching?
so for reading, I recently finished the book Dazzling, by Shikadali Emma Lamadu. They are a Nigerian British author. Um, and it's a really strange book. So it's heavily based on Nigerian folklore,
Okay.
and it's about two girls, both dealing with strife over like not having a parent in their life. Um, and one of them is born into a family where she has to become one with like this leopard, which is this like being that's supposed to attack evil in the world. And like one member will become the leopard in their family, and she's the first female leopard. And so she has like a lot of struggles, and she's battling with this, like trying to accept herself or not letting the leopard take over herself, because you're supposed to be tethered to another human before you can become the leopard, or you're in danger of losing
Okay.
yourself. And so she has all this stuff going on. Um, but then in the past, it's this story of this girl named Treasure who lost her father and is destitute and having a lot of problems with her mother. And she ends up making a deal with a spirit, and it's not a good deal. And it's like going back and forth between the two perspectives and kind of like a little bit of a mystery.
Hmm.
It's a really slow burn. Like it was a really good novel. I gave it 4 stars, but it was really difficult to get through just because
Mhm.
it's much slower paced and it is like a fantasy and it does like a lot of the language is more like Nigerian based. So like coming out of the Igbo language and how people from Nigeria would speak. So you're just reading a different phrasing than you're used to, which isn't a
Mhm.
problem. I really liked it, but it means like you're going to be taking this in more slowly. And sometimes I will say the book was a little bit confusing on what was happening when, but I
Mm.
think that that was also intentional. So I really enjoyed it. It just took me forever to get through, and I was sitting there like, I really want to be reading this so much faster so I can find out what happens, but also I can only read like 10 pages at a time and then I'm
Mm.
tired.
Mhm.
So it was a good slow burn and it was a good reminder to kind of slow down. And I don't have to finish a book within a week for it to be a good book. I can slowly like nibble off
Sure.
pieces and learn about it. So it's a very ambitious book. It was very good, very interesting. So definitely recommend it. I wonder if the audiobook, I wonder if they have like two different voices. That would be really cool.
Mm.
Um,
Yeah.
and so, because they are two very different characters and they just have different feels to them. So I really enjoyed that part of it. And just kind of the look at like classism and,
Mhm.
and what it means to be, suffering through the loss of a father, either through death or through other means. I thought that was really interesting. So yeah, overall good book. I had mentioned thinness because I also read Aubrey Gordon's memoir.
Oh, yeah.
Uh, what? Oh my gosh, it's such a long title. I'm like, I know this title, and then I'm like, why would I know this title? It's a million miles long. What we don't talk about when we talk about fat.
Mm.
Um, and so that one, I read her other book and I didn't love it. It just felt a little bit scattered. This one I liked a little bit more because it was more memoir than just
Mhm.
like, here's this evidence-based thing. It was really good. I enjoyed it a lot. It's pretty short for a book. I listened to it via audiobook. I would say the one disappointing thing is she doesn't read it herself. Someone else reads
Oh,
this one.
which is
Um,
surprising considering she's like a popular, excuse me, popular podcaster. I can't
I
speak.
know. So it was strange to like have her do that, but
Yeah,
maybe
that's a
she just
weird
was
choice.
maybe she was too busy when it first came out
Mhm.
and I don't know. But so that was my only like, oh, that's a little sad. I would have preferred to hear it in her own voice, but I thought this one was much better. It fixed a lot of the issues I had with the other one. Like the other one felt like it almost wanted to be a memoir, but was trying to couch it in like
Mhm.
like factoids or like, oh, this is more of a scientific paper, but it felt more memoirish. This one was
Mhm.
definitely memoirish with like fat liberation mixed in and just discussions
Okay.
of like what it means to be invested in fat liberation and like feminism, body positivity, those type of things. And I really enjoyed that. And so I thought it was really good. And it talked a lot about the things that like I've I know that I've struggled with or other people have struggled with when it comes to like being a fat
Mhm.
person where like the expectation is on you to always be happy if someone like wants to give you attention. Um and then you have to take whatever attention you can get and that's like always a struggle and that
Mhm.
like being a fat person does not mean that you get to treat someone inhumanly on a plane because they take up more space, especially when plane seats are notoriously small. She talks about different experiences of like people asking to be moved or freaking out on her or shoving into her and she's like sitting there getting bruised and they think they have a right to touch her body because it's a fat
Oh my
body
gosh.
like and it's because she's a woman who is over 300 pounds so she is a fat
Mhm.
woman and just the way we treat fat people and the things we think we have a right to say to them um is pretty terrible and like makes me rethink some of the way I've lived my life because I know I've had harmful thoughts before. Um, and just like we think it's okay to shame fat people because people think fatness is a choice. Like
Mhm.
you could just lose weight or you could just count calories, you could do all this, and it's just not true. And like we don't build a world for fat people. We build a world mostly for straight sized men.
Mhm.
And then like fat people are told they're to blame for not fitting into that aspect,
Mhm.
and that is a huge problem. So talking about how like fat people just deserve and this is something I've like come to think about more and more as I get older. It's just like the way we tell people they don't deserve things because of something. Like, you don't deserve a living wage because you have a minimum wage job. You don't deserve a phone because you have a minimum wage job. Just like so many things we tell people or we shame like people in our heads for, when it's like there's
Hmm.
dignity in every job, there's dignity in every body size, and to treat it otherwise. And like there's dignity in like any capability that any human has. And
Right.
when we treat people like they're less than, it just like boggles my mind how you can't treat someone with like the basic decency level. Um, and this book made me think a lot about that with just how she's treated and kind of what she reflects on. And I obviously love her podcast. I think Maintenance Phase,
Hmm.
one of the most amazing podcasts in the world, honestly. And like she says stuff that still challenges me, but it's one of those things where I'm like, okay, good, like actively unlisten, or unlearn this
Hmm.
stuff. And like I've talked about it with friends recently, like I'm someone who grew up in a home with a lot of like fat people. And I literally had to retrain myself how to eat because there was so much shame involved with eating. Like
Hmm.
it used to be like, well, you eat half the pan of brownies because you know you're not supposed to eat the brownies. So obviously you're a terrible person if you eat those. So then you have to binge because you're so ashamed. And that was most of my childhood. And then it was just me running like 5 miles a day to like
Hmm.
make sure that eating half a pan of brownies was okay. And then later in life, I had to be like, you know what? It's okay to eat a serving size of anything, Hannah. And I had to like
Yep.
actually actively unlearn how I ate and what I thought was good or not because of like the connotations of the way, my life was affected by the societal norms around me
Hmm.
around fat people. And that's like, my mom was a fat person. She dieted her entire life. It wore on her
Hmm.
body, and that's rough. So it made me think a lot about that stuff. So,
Hmm.
a great book. Very much enjoyed. Made me think a lot of different things. So, uh, yeah. And then for watching, I started watching Avatar: The Last Airbender. Um,
Oh, yay. The
uh,
cartoon or the live action?
the cartoon. I've never seen the cartoon, so I'm watching it for the first
That's
time.
one of my childhood faves.
I've never seen, I mean, I remember that like I used to watch maybe 5 minutes of it when one of my sisters was babysitting
Hmm.
these two kids. Um, and I remember like it would go from like Charmed and then we would change the channel over to Avatar: The Last Airbender, but I was like,
Hmm.
ew, boy show, and I left the room. So I barely ever watched it.
You,
Uh
you and the boy things that you were just like, no, boy book, no,
I
boy
I
show.
told you my house was supremely about women. I was raised in the like this is a female household and all things female reign supreme and it and
That's
it
so
lends
funny to me
itself.
though, because I don't know why I'd never like considered this to be a boy show. I was just like,
Oh, I'm sure it wasn't. It was
it's
just like to
amazing.
me, I'm like, well, boys watch that show, so boy show, and I prefer to watch other better shows like the Wings Saga. Um, so
Don't get me
you know,
started because this is I think this is probably so much better than Wings Saga.
but it's a cute show. I mean, it's a little kid show, so you're watching it with adult eyes, but it is very sweet and very cute. So, and a little bit like, I mean, it's a kid show, but the beginning is
I mean,
dark. Like that
they
is
do
dark.
handle a lot of
I
dark
know.
things,
I know.
so
Yeah, I know you're not wrong. So, oh, and I forgot to mention, uh, guys, famously, one of the most important authors in Hannah's life just published a new book.
oh yes, the owner creator of NetGalley,
The
Emily
owner and
Henry.
creator of NetGalley, Emily
If you
Henry.
are on Bookstagram and you didn't know that Emily Henry released a book and that Taylor Swift released an album in the same week, I think, where have you been?
AKA also the weekend before Indie Bookstore Day. So it really was a
Oh,
white woman.
yeah, that's true.
It
It was like
was
White Woman Paradise
it was
on
white woman
Instagram.
paradise on the internet this week. So
It
uh
made me want to shut down all my socials. I've seen so many posts. I'm like, no.
I'm very sorry because I was one of them and I definitely had a Taylor Swift song in the
A
background
Taylor
of
Swift
the
song?
post I
Oh
had.
no. About
Uh
Emily Henry?
yeah, I had
Oh
Are You
my
Ready for It? But not one of her new songs. I listened to the
Okay.
album once and I couldn't tell
I
you.
haven't listened to it at all. I feel
I
like I'm being rebellious.
Here's the thing. I opened up my incognito tab on YouTube and I streamed it on there so it wouldn't know who listened. Uh
Incognito doesn't protect you.
Well, the incognito doesn't protect me from like cash stuff, but it does
I'm
protect
just
my.
saying that because that's what everybody's always saying all the time now
Oh,
is
no,
incognito
no, no.
doesn't protect you.
I turned it on so at least wouldn't pop up on my like signed in stuff. I was like, usually
Sure.
it'll keep it away. Uh, but I listened to the entire album and it is just beige. I mean, it's like great brown sound for your work
Hmm.
day because you
Okay.
can turn
Like
it on and like,
ASMR-ish.
yeah, it's Taylor
Hmm.
Swift's new album is very ASMR-ish in my
Hmm.
opinion. Guys, I understand if you love her. She's not my favorite. And guess what? Me not liking her all that much does nothing to Taylor Swift's fame.
Also, she
So
doesn't care, so.
yeah, she's fine. It was just very beige music in my opinion. That's like the
Hmm.
joke that we talked about for the Madam Web movie where it's Sydney Sweeney and what's her face, and it's like that's just such beige acting all in one film. Like
Dakota
uh
Johnson.
Dakota Johnson. Why you can't have that many beige actresses in the
Oh,
same roles? Like
yes. Dakota
I
Johnson. It's
still think
me, Dakota Johnson.
it's just me, Dakota Johnson. Although I do think about her attacking her neighbor for calling the cops on her car once.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, she was talking. She lives close to Jimmy, not Jimmy
Kimmel.
Fallon, but the other Jimmy
Kimmel.
Kimmel. Yeah, and they were
You are
hanging
a Jimmy
out.
Kimmel stan.
I do like Jimmy Kimmel. And Jimmy Kimmel and her were at an event, and their other neighbor walked up, and they were like, "Neighbor reunion." And Dakota Johnson goes, "Did you call the cops on my grandfather's car?" And Jimmy Kimmel was like, and it became very clear that yes, that happened.
That's funny.
And she was like, "Well, they were making such a big deal about this like antique truck that was on my yard, and that's my business, not yours." And I'm like, you know, between that and the Ellen, Dakota Johnson, very beige acting, very confrontational person. You're not
Willing to call people out. I was going to mention the
willing.
Ellen thing
Yeah.
because that's one
So,
of my favorite things that I've seen is her saying,
so
Ellen, I
yeah.
did invite you, but I did.
Look
And you
up the
didn't
Jimmy
come.
Kimmel clip, Laura, because you're gonna have a great day that day.
Oh,
So,
good. Good.
but yes, I listened to owner and operator of Deck Alley, or I didn't listen. I read Emily Henry's new
Mhm.
book, Funny Story, and Funny Story top three of my favorite books of hers. So it
Top
soared
three
right
books ever or of hers?
of hers. So
So what's
I
your Beach Read's still number one?
Beach Read is number one because it can't be taken down. And honestly,
Okay.
I don't know. I think Book Lovers and Funny Story are battling it out for number two
Really?
spot, and I don't know which one to pick. I think I have to mull on it a little bit more.
Hmm.
Um, and then I believe it goes Happy Place, and then the Friends We
People
Meet
we
on
meet and
Vacation. Yeah,
people we meet
because
on vacation.
I just I that one doesn't make sense because it's not about people that you meet on vacation. They're literally best friends and they take
Hmm.
vacations
Hmm.
together. That's that's not accurate. But I really like this story. It is very fun. It is about I do even know what it is about, Laura.
No.
Uh
Much like Taylor Swift, I have kind of not pursued any information on this book.
no, that's very fair. So it's about a woman who is engaged to be married, and 6 weeks before her wedding, her fiance leaves her for his best friend,
Okay.
and leaves her pretty much homeless. So she moves in with the fiance's best friend's ex. Like the fiance and the best friend left their respective
Hmm.
partners and now they
So
live
they have
together.
swapped partners, basically.
Yes. And their forced proximity. And the beginning, I laughed out loud because I was like, man, this I'm going to ruin the beginning of this, but it is very
Okay.
funny. Skip a minute if you don't want the beginning of Funny Story to be ruined. But there's a moment where she hears the song All by Myself playing in the next room. And I'm like, wow, what a ripoff of Bridget Jones's Diary, Emily Henry. Like you're losing some material.
Then
And then
she mentions Bridget Jones's Diary.
she goes and she knocks on his door and she goes, "Are you watching Bridget Jones's Diary?" And he goes, "Yeah, it's a great movie." And she goes, "But this song has been playing for like the last 8 minutes. How many times have you rewatched it?" And that made me laugh because that is the humor that I enjoy. But honestly, great book, lighthearted, super cute, works well, and I really liked this character. She's someone who like has trouble making friends and she like moved to this area to be with her fiance and now she's all alone and she's just trying to like figure out her way in the world. And it was just really cute. I really enjoyed it. I thought it
Yeah.
was really nice. So that's
I
my
will say that
thoughts.
Emily Henry does have a very like cinematic writing style,
Mhm.
which is probably why her books are being adapted, like all of
Yeah.
them. But I know just reading Beach Read, I like initially just the first couple chapters is like, no wonder Hannah loves this. This is like total rom-com, just reading the script from a rom-com movie. I picture the whole thing.
Yep, exactly. I reread portions of Beach Read sometimes because they're so cinematic and so amazing and they just like sit in my brain.
That's great to have a
I
favorite book like that that you can revisit and just love on all the time.
I know. I love a good rom-com. That was Laura and I were talking on our Discord, hashtag join our Discord.
Hmm.
And she was talking about movies where she was like, well, we all thought we liked those, but did we? And I was like, I honestly did. There's
I'm not sure still. I don't know.
you totally get to be someone who is like, no, 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 I was just along for the bit. But me as a
I think
person, I'm like, no, here's the thing. I did genuinely love rom-coms growing up. But again, I was raised in that feminist household where women things were supreme. So you loved a good rom-com.
I I really feel like I was just someone, especially when I was in high school, who was trying hard to like kind of like I didn't have a lot of friends or any
Mhm.
friends. And if I would get invited over to somebody's house or something like that was a huge deal. And I feel like it was very much one of those things where like if you were invited over to somebody's house and they were watching whatever movie it may be, you're like,
Mhm.
I also love this movie. It's great. It's awesome. And I'm like, I'm not sure if I actually did like these things or not. Like I in high school I was very much like all worried about like why don't I have a boyfriend? I don't understand why people don't
I
like me,
mean,
why I don't have
yeah, I did
friends
have that
and
problem too.
why I don't have a boyfriend. And so I think the wanting a boyfriend thing, I can see why I would be drawn to rom-coms because
Hmm.
the weird nerdy girl who, quote unquote nerdy
Who
girl
just falls all over herself at all
is
times.
yeah, is always somebody who finds love with a super hunky guy. But
Hmm.
at the same time, I also was just very much a nerd and very much like really into animals and stuff like that. And we had Animal Planet. I watched a lot of Animal Planet. I watched a lot of animal documentaries, and I really feel like that is my true
That's fair.
calling. I I I don't know.
And I'm glad you have that. I will stick with my How to Lose a Guy in 10 Days supremeness. But it means I'm a huge fan of Emily Henry. I'm a
Yes.
stan. I can't help it. Can't be helped. Great book. So good. Everyone go read it because
I
I
should pick up
adored
some
it.
others of hers because I thought Beach Read was great, and then Happy Place.
Happy Place to hit you in a very wrong way. But
Yeah,
like,
I wasn't big on that
uh,
one.
but Book Lovers is really good. I really love Book Lovers. People we meet on vacation is fine. Lots of people love it. Not for me, but you might love it. I think that also helps. Like a lot of people will love like three of her books a lot, and then one will
Hmm.
just not be it, and that's
Well,
also
that's also kind
okay.
of nice too, where she's an author that is kind of got a lot of different like tropes and stuff going on that can
Hmm.
appeal to many readers. So
Exactly. So
cool.
yeah, but
I will say
all
though,
over the
like when I
place.
was reading Beach Read, I may have mentioned this to you before when I talked about Beach Read. Did you picture Emily Henry as the main character?
No. But I do, now that you mention it, I never picture Emily Henry, but they're always blonde. And when I look at the cover and it's brunette, I'm like, you're
Yes,
blonde.
that also threw me off. That also threw me
Like,
off, but for some reason I had seen Emily Henry's pictures somewhere,
mm,
probably, and I don't know why when I was reading Beach Read that I just always pictured Emily Henry as the main character in Beach Read.
that's very fair. I could see it because I pictured her as a blonde. I always think her main
So
characters
I
are
kind
blonde.
of I don't know if the people who are doing the adaptation have considered this, but maybe Emily Henry should star in
Maybe
it
she's an
because
actress.
because that would fit what's going on in my brain.
Fair enough. All right. Should we dive in to the final section of Jim Butcher?
Yes. Hannah, not a
Guys,
lot
stuff
happens.
happens. Stuff happens, not much. And then at the end, he gives you a roundup of the ending of the
Okay,
novel.
here's the thing. When we're reading this, do do you think that this book would be more enjoyable if we were kind of like thinking about this from more of like this is an 80s movie standpoint where it's like record scratch and and then
Yeah, the
and
record scratch would be helpful.
and then Harry Dresden like says over the top like the problem here is I knew that he was gonna try and throw some black magic and demons at me. But
That
like
would work very
or
well.
like at the end when he's like going through like well and then this person did this and me, well, I'm still up to my regular shenanigans.
That is
Being
how
me,
this ends. It's literally
Harry
how it
Blackstone
ends.
Copperfield Dresden. I
But that's
know.
how
That's why I'm
it
mentioning it.
ends.
That's why I'm saying, would this book be more fun if we pretended that it was all like just kind of an 80s movie type,
Maybe
like
we've just
Ferris
been reading it
Bueller
in the
type?
wrong. Yeah. Because no, you're not wrong. You're 1,000% right. Because at the end of it, I was like, wait, that's how it ends with a little like Ferris
Yes.
Bueller, and that's the rest of the story. Signing off, Harry
Yes.
Copperphone, Copperphone,
Copperfield.
uh,
Harry
Coppertone, Harry Coppertone
Blackfield
Blackstone.
Copperstone Copperfield Dresden. Like
I,
the way that I was so annoyed with those like thoughts where he's like kind of cuts away and has a thought to about the situation, and then I was like, you know what? I should have been reading this all with more of a lighthearted, this is an 80s movie. This is Ferris Bueller because it's like it would have been a lot funnier, honestly.
I mean, I guess I did read it
The
a
book is
little bit with
still
the
a
like,
romp.
yeah, it's a romp. It's a fun romp. Like I didn't give this like 1 star. I gave it three
No.
stars,
We
guys.
didn't give it 1 star. We gave it 0. But the, just kidding.
Okay. Well,
Just kidding.
honestly, so we do have to at least tell you guys what happened because that
Okay,
is the
go
premise
ahead.
of our podcast. So
I'm sorry.
Harry,
I'm
as if you
derailing
remember
things.
where we left on Dresden Files, Harry was
Yeah, he
at the
was
low point,
yeah, he
literally.
was talking
He
about
says
his
it.
dad.
Yes, he's talking about his dad. His dad was a magician. But
His dad
did I ever
never showed him even like a simple card trick.
did I ever tell you my dad was a magician? No, Harry. So anyway,
If
someone's
dad would
coming.
have been around to just teach me a couple things, I might have known how
His
to get out of these sticky situations.
his dad is a magician and he's laying on a dead woman's floor for a murder he is probably wanted for. And he's just laying in his own DNA, putting it everywhere.
This is very
Uh
much like the arc of the story where it's just like him walking around Chicago in the the fog and just like the thing was my dad passed away and he was also a magician, but I never learned a damn thing from him.
he's there's fog rolling in underneath the door of Linda's
Yes,
bedroom.
yes.
The slut act. So anyway,
Why the slut act?
also, we left and I was like, oh, I haven't really been reading ahead. I don't know what happens next. But I'm like, but all of a sudden the door opens. And it's the most anticlimactic moment
Oh
where it's like,
gosh.
guess who's on the other side of the door? Nobody who's important. A
Hmm.
little bit of a plot guy who's telling you
Yep.
what's what. And is he important to the story? No,
No.
because it is just the photographer who took pictures
Yes.
at the lake house, who
And
he
he's
just
scared to death.
he's scared to death. He wanted to get the film reel though, so he could maybe blackmail people,
Hmm.
question mark. And Harry is like, tell me everything you know. And he's like, I know nothing. Linda hired me to get blackmail photos. I did. She took the canisters.
Hmm.
She's dead now. I came here for them. And Harry's like, well, I'm gonna burn these to a crisp so you can't use them. And the guy was like, oh, and runs out of the room. That's all he does. That's all he does.
Yeah.
And so then Harry is like, you know who I gotta go talk to? The woman who knows all, Monica Sells. And so he goes to talk to the woman who hired him
Hmm.
about her husband who's been missing. Monica's the woman whose husband's been missing for
Yes.
everyone
She's the
who is
one
not
that
reading these
hired
books.
him
Yes.
and
And
then fired him mysteriously.
he goes, he knocks on the door. She's like, I'm gonna call the police. And he's like, no, you're not. You're gonna tell me everything you know. Because Harry Dresden is serious. And
Harry Harry doesn't take no for an answer.
ew. And so she admits to him that her husband has gotten into real bad magic, and he's the one who's distributing Third Eye, Deus Machina Third Eye.
Just say though, this whole section like describing how he became bad was so weird, and where they were both just like,
Well,
it's the power. He's obsessed with the power.
but she's also like, he was okay for a while, but also not great, and also now he's abusive,
And
and
now I'm
also
protecting the kids. And
yeah,
I'm like,
So
Oh
yeah,
my
she's protecting the
gosh.
kids. We find out that her sister is one of the murder victims,
Yes.
and
And
he,
he's so obsessed with power that he's pretty much willing to like subject his wife to abuse and be like, ha 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 ha. And it's like, okay,
well,
that's
and
uncomfortable.
so she, we also find out that like her husband has been feeding on power and power and power.
Yes.
And
And
so
then
he
lust. He
figures
finds
out
out,
that lust is a good motivator, such as like
yes.
pain, lust, those types of things
Hmm.
really get those power juices flowing. Gross, but that's what's
Yeah.
happening. So he has orgies in the
Hmm.
middle of their lake house, with the windows wide open so that the photographer could take photos,
Right.
security much. And he found out that his wife's sister was a sex worker. And so
And the way that
he
they this make that into such a shameful thing is
it's
annoying to me
so
as well.
well, because like he's literally abusing his wife, and then he
Hmm.
forces his wife into orgies, and then forces her sister, who's a sex worker, into his orgies. And again, like
Hmm.
sex work is real work, and a lot of sex workers wouldn't want to sleep with their brother-in-law. But the
Right.
implication is like, oh, she's okay with that, so she's okay with anything as long as the money is good.
Right. But also the
Excuse
way
you?
that like Dresden has previously frowned upon and been so like, oh, I feel so bad for you for towards sex workers, and
Yeah.
then again, kind of like when you hear this type of story, I'm like, great, another weird take on this.
It's very weird takes on this entire thing. So we also find out that like he has the Becketts working with him with the third eye,
Yes.
who are the employers of Linda, the chauffeur slut.
Yes.
And they've been part of the
The
orgies
chauffeur slut.
because their child was killed by a stray bullet from Marconi, and they want to bring Marconi down. So they've been
Which,
trying to
what
get
a bizarre way to go about that.
You wouldn't want to use your vendetta with orgies, Laura. Um,
I mean, that's not the plan I would have come up with, but I guess this is
so
solid. I
it's
I
it's so
don't
wild.
know.
But also then like Linda was like, I'm out of that game, but then goes to the people who she's had orgies with to be their
Yes,
chauffeur. You're literally not out of the game
you're
then. You're
still
being
in it.
employed by the game. It's it's a wild swing to make these
Right.
stories connect. But I was just like, this doesn't make sense. I don't understand what's going on. Okay. And so then she finds out that like Harry does tell Monica that her husband Victor has a sprig of his hair, and she's like, you need to leave now, there's a
He's like, I just
storm
want my
running
hair
in.
back.
And she's like, but he will use that to murder you. And he's like,
He's
that's
like, I
not
want my
right.
luscious locks back.
um and but he doesn't want to bring harm to her because he's such a good guy. So he's like, fine, I'm leaving, but you should get out while you still can. And then he goes and he has very inappropriate conversation with her daughter,
Yes.
Jenny. She named Jenny after her sister Jennifer, who her husband has orgies with. So weird
I
vibe.
I too many things happening here.
Too many things happening. But then she, the little girl's like, "Are you gonna murder my dad?" And
And he says,
Harry's like,
I don't want to, but
"Maybe."
I'm probably going to.
What?
Why would you say that?
Just say like, "Go talk to your mom, honey." Like, don't talk to
Or
her.
just
Don't.
lie. Don't you don't have to
No,
say
I'm
I'm
still on
probably
the
going
side
to.
of Harry just not speaking to children. I think you should
I
not
mean,
speak to
here's the
children.
thing. I don't know if he should speak to very many people at all.
But he's Harry Dresden, and his dad used to be a magician.
His
Uh,
dad didn't teach him a lot of things, we learned.
So he like tells this little girl that she's gonna go murder her dad, and then he hightails it out of the house.
Freaking weirdo. I'll be back. I might have to go kill your dad
This is like this Tim McGraw stupid Flicka movie where the girl's
to
like, "Are
put
you
your
gonna?"
why.
It's like, I'm sorry, there is that Flicka movie. I will bring him up again, where Tim McGraw is about to go murder Flicka, and the girls at the top of the stairs, and she goes, "Are you gonna kill us, Dad?" Imagine if Tim McGraw turned around and goes, "Well, I don't want to,
Maybe.
but yes, but maybe." Like,
Maybe.
and that was over a horse, not a
Oh,
dad.
can Tim McGraw be Harry Dresden in the new adaptation?
Yes, Tim McGraw could play 24.
They would try. They put
So
that man through a lot in his acting.
they did put that man through a lot in his acting. Anyone just go look up Tim McGraw's IMDb. Wild ride.
Oh,
Wild ride.
what? What? Okay. That's a whole nother
Um,
episode.
Country Strong. I think about that movie. That is my Roman Empire. I think about Country Strong at least once a week.
Oh my gosh. I totally forgot about that movie.
I can't. I could
Oh my
never.
gosh.
What a
Oh,
weird, wild swing that movie was. Oh my
it was
gosh.
terrible.
Okay. No, that movie was bad.
Oh,
Um, so anyway, back to Harry. He's murdering fathers in here.
he might
So
be.
he leaves and he's like, "Oh my gosh, I have a little scorpion scabbard from Victor that I could use to like
Hmm.
put my magic against him and really just like kick the shit out of him." But then he like calls Murphy's office to tell her what's going on and admit all this stuff and tell her to like watch out for Monica Sells. And Murphy's Murphy's
Murphy's at
coworker
his
answers the
office.
phone and he's like, "I can't hear you, Ben, but she's over at Dresden's office." And it's like, how is this ever a conversation that
Oh my
happens?
gosh.
And so
Here's the
Dresden
thing,
is
Hannah.
like,
This is all a cautionary tale because a cautionary tale to women to always listen to Harry Dresden or else bad things will happen to you because that's what happens to Karen
also
Murphy. She
Murphy
doesn't listen
just
to Harry Dresden and
goes
then
off
something
the
bad happens.
also she goes off the deep end where she like throws out everything she could possibly ever know and just becomes a hysterical person in the scene where Harry calls her and he's like, "Hey, there's something dangerous. Please do not open
Don't go
it."
in my desk. And she's like, I am going through this desk.
And she opens it and then she is attacked by a scorpion because the
A scorpion
scorpion went
demon.
live.
Hmm.
And he like goes to rush in to save her and she's literally injured and then
And
she's like
blinded.
and blinded and she still is hysterically trying to arrest Harry Dresden.
I will say this is kind of a terrifying thing to listen to in the audiobook because
Mm.
the way that he reads it, like reads her saying like, Harry, I can't see. Like,
Oh
I
gosh.
can't. It's harrowing to listen to that because some of our listeners have pointed out in Discord the audio quality of the audiobook, not great. But
Okay.
the the portrayal of this section, I was like, oh, this I do not like what's happening to Karen Murphy right now. This is scary.
It's wild. And she's sitting there just like screaming at him, trying to like arrest him as he's trying to save her. I'm like, what is going on? So Harry does
Well,
end
she's
up
like
destroying.
freaking out because she's like, "What? You're in trouble, Justin." Because I think she thinks at this point that he has purposely planted this to get her.
Yes. But like she's also incredibly injured. And it just
Hmm.
it boggles my mind the way that he has her like still
Yes.
trying to like actively try to go through this. And I'm like, she needs to take care of herself and like take a step back before she can try to do
Hmm.
what she's doing. And
And he's
because
like,
we're in
"Don't worry,
Harry
Karen.
and
I
because
help
we're in
all women."
Harry Dresden's like brain, he's like, "Man, she's acting so ridiculous." And it's like, nope, she's not. But like the way you're portraying her is ridiculous.
I
It's
will
very
say
confusing.
though, I will say though, like I do understand why she starts to like even if she's injured and blind, why she starts to like assume and kind of freak out because that is a freaky situation.
Yeah.
Why she starts to assume like, oh, Harry is the bad guy because
No, it makes
obviously.
sense in
Oh,
her
okay.
brain. Like I
Yeah.
do think it makes sense for her, but I don't
Yeah.
think any of her actions
Leading up to that
makes
point.
sense. Like it feels like she gets thrown in as like her own plot for a plot device for like to show
Absolutely.
off how great Harry is. But then during it, she's
Oh
acting
my
like
gosh. The true theme of this book. Harry
Harry
is
is
so
amazing.
great.
And she's just sitting there like, "I'm gonna get you, da 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 da." And it's just like, what? yeah, it's normal for her to want to arrest him, but during a crisis where there's something coming after her, like she
Hmm.
would have the wherewithal to try to attack what's trying to attack her. Like, and
Yes.
it feels like she's just like, I'm the law and I'll put a handcuff on you and
Yes.
then you're arrested. And it's like, she's a smart human. All we've been told is she's a fighter, she's capable. And like, yes, she is blind, but like she wouldn't be acting like this, where she's like,
Right.
all I have to do is say something and then it's true. But anyway, Harry ends up killing the scorpion. He saves her, gets the EMT there. He's like, you can't help me because I have to go with Big Bad. He has my hair. And he leaves the
Well, and then he's
scene.
saying like ridiculous. He was saying like ridiculous things to the EM. Oh no, this is not that point yet.
Uh,
Not that point yet. Never mind.
okay. And so he is talking to the MT a little bit, but like, well, you're bleeding, you need help. And he's like, nope, can't be helped, can't be helped. And so he runs and he realizes he doesn't have a car. So he goes to the bar that he hangs out with to ask for
Hmm.
McNally's car. And McNally does give it to him. But then all of a
This
sudden,
is the moment he
Morgan,
realized that this is like a safe haven for all these magical beings too. He's like looking around and he's like, "Oh my gosh,
everyone's
wow!"
here to stay safe. Isn't this
And
wonderful?
they're all afraid of me.
Well, then Morgan comes in, and Morgan's like,
Mhm.
I know you created the scorpion and you are trying to attack everyone, and you're a bad guy.
I'm not gonna lie, it
And
doesn't look
then
good for Harry at this point.
and then Harry just hits Morgan with a chair, which I did
Which,
laugh
what an
at.
idiot. And then he even says, he's like, I can admit that this doesn't look good with all these people around. Seeing me hit a member of the White Council that they know is my probation officer, who has a lot of pull. And I won't be able to rebuke this because because people I won't be able to meet up with everybody in the morning because it'll take them quite a while to get there. I'm like, oh good
Hmm.
Lord.
And so anyway, he knocks him out. Mac is like, I got you covered, Harry. Because this is the book where they're like, you want to know who deserves everyone on their side? Harry.
Hmm.
He deserves that. And so he
Harry deserves the
leaves.
best.
He talks a lot about Mac's car and how much better it is than his car. And he goes out to the lake
The
house.
beetle, it's better than the beetle? What?
And Victor's doing some magic. He's ready to kill Harry.
Victor is a little
And
too over the top villainous for me.
okay, he's so over the top villainous. And Harry walks in, and Jim Butcher has told us that they have orgies. And
Yes.
then he just says, there are two naked people over there. And he doesn't say that
The
they're having
Becketts.
the Becketts, but he goes, the two Becketts are naked in the corner. And I was like, Jim Butcher, we know what they're doing. You could say it
Mhm.
out loud. The way he said it, it sounded like they were just like sitting over in the a corner naked, like hanging out. And I'm
Just
like,
just
well,
standing there.
they're obviously not doing that. You said that it has to
We're
be
just waiting.
lustful.
Go ahead,
We're just waiting.
finish what you're talking about.
Just
We're just waiting for him.
just do what you're doing. We're gonna get sit over here
Don't
naked
worry
and
about
just like
us.
chill. It was very bizarre where I was like, but you could say they're having sex in the corner. We know what they're doing.
Right.
Also, I think you were right, Laura. Weird way to get your vendetta.
Just finally get into this weird way.
Well, there's it's such a weird section where he's like, they're listening to the same music I heard the other night, and it's like,
I would
oh,
say
so
there's a
that was
lot
a
of like
plot point.
added details in this that I'm like, that was a strange mention because I think
I
even when he goes to
know.
visit Monica at her house, doesn't her house have like a bunch of cow decor or something like that that he mentions? Like
Yeah.
she looked over at the cow tails swinging from the clock, and I'm like, this is a
Well,
weird
and so then he like Harry
decoration
tries to
choice.
be Quippy McQuipperson with Victor, and Victor is like, I'm a bad guy.
So this was one of my least favorite things because there's very much like a type of hero, quote unquote, that people resonate with and absolutely love, who eggs on the villain and is all
Hmm.
like, I'm sarcastic and y'all love me. And it's like, no, you're being annoying as heck. Shut up and handle
Just
this situation
just
seriously.
hit him with a chair. You've already done it once tonight.
You being a D-bag is not
Well,
preferred.
and then we find out Victor has like one trick and it's just making many scorpions, which I
Yes.
do find funny to be like,
Why
you know what
why
my
is
power
that the
is?
only thing?
Scorpions.
Scorpions.
And I love how much magic it takes because he goes Scorpus, Scorpus, Scorpus.
But doesn't he say something like it was some kind of ancient language, Babylonian or who knows what? It doesn't matter.
I'm pretty sure it's Latin for scorpion, as in scorpus, scorpus,
I'm
scorpus.
almost positive though that he's like, it's just some kind of ancient language. It doesn't matter. She's just like,
Oh,
oh, come on.
so funny. Scorpus, scorpus, scorpus. And then I will say they always have them screaming things in threes because at one point
Yes.
Harry Dresden is like, Politis, Politis, Politis. And it's like, why are you guys just shouting in threes? Is that like a magic number?
Well, because they're trying to summon this demon.
Right. And so Victor tries
And
to
this
kill
was a
Harry
weird
with
moment too.
he tries to kill Harry with scorpions. It doesn't work. The Beckets
No.
flee because all of a sudden everything is on fire.
And they're
And
like, oops,
then
we're naked too. This is bad.
this is really bad when things are on fire. We are naked in a corner. We
We are
should leave.
completely exposed.
And so then Victor summons the Toad Demon to kill Harry. But in doing
But
so,
the demon cannot decide who he wants to side
well,
with because he's
because
like, I don't
Victor
know.
isn't
Harry looks pretty powerful too.
well, Harry is like, you're not a trained wizard, so you do not understand that if you just say a demon's name out loud, I could call him over to me, and then he's on my side. And then the Toad
Which
Demon's
this
like,
was like super plot holy. Like, come on.
I don't. It was very strange. And so Harry is also like still
I
clinging
didn't buy the
on.
whole like this villain is so incapable of knowing about things that he wouldn't have thought. I don't know.
Well,
I
and then they're having this final showdown. The demon is confused, and
yes, because he's
Harry
I think I might work
decides,
for Harry.
and Harry goes, I'm gonna tell you, Victor, who sold you out to me. It was your wife, because you want to know what? Harry is a feminist.
Here's the thing: as this is happening, I'm like, you idiot! You know she's a victim. What are
I
you
know.
thinking? Why you know?
He's treating her like he would treat any other man, and that is feminism, Laura.
And that is his right.
And so anyway, like Victor could still get away. He doesn't. And he falls to his death pretty much. Harry is saved
Hmm.
by Murphy's handcuff, Deus handcuff. And he is like, man, I saw Morgan standing there looking at me, realizing that he had been wrong all along.
Suck it, Morgan.
And then
But
like
then Morgan
Harry,
gives him CPR and like brings him back to life.
yeah. And
And
he's like,
to
hey,
which he says, "Ew."
yeah. He says ew to CPR because no homo. Uh,
I'm like, that's like he's not like kissing you. He's trying to save your life.
well, and then he's like, wow, you were not the bad guy all along, but I still think you're a bad guy.
But
I'm a
first
bad
Harry
guy, but
says
that
to
doesn't
him,
make
like,
me a
I can't
bad
believe you
guy.
saved me. And he's like, I actually do care about people. And now I know that
Can
you're
I
not the big bad, but you're still terrible, Justin.
can I tell you that when I was reading this, Harry Dresden at one point goes, "Give me a gallon of Listerine and I'll be all right." And I didn't. I
What?
I didn't connect that he was discussing about the CPR and the ew. I didn't realize it was about the no homo section, and I
Oh,
was
that's definitely what it's for.
no, I know that now. When I was reading it, Laura, I was so confused. I was like, why would you need Listerine? So that's Hannah's fault. And then all of a
But
sudden
that
he's
joke
like,
doesn't land well, honestly.
no, it's a
It
bad
just
joke.
doesn't.
It was totally it happened like a page after he said ew, and I'm like, you can't have it happen that
No. Yeah,
long.
like
Like we've read a whole page. No, thank you.
and
So
again,
anyway,
it's very much just like Harry's so annoying at this point because I'm already annoyed with him for trying to egg on the mega villain. And
right?
then when he's being super sarcastic and like, I need a gallon of Listerine to get Morgan's taste out of my mouth for money, but smooching on me. And it's like, that is not what happened.
But
Morgan, you should
anyway,
have left him.
he is like, well, the police arrived, and then all of a sudden it just goes to like closing credits, Harry over the like
It's
announcement
it's
being
the
like,
it's like Harry's walking off into the distance.
yeah,
And
it is
you hear him talking about all the women. Here's the thing. He's thinking about all the women at this point.
yeah.
He's thinking about the women that died, thinking about his mom. He's
Well,
thinking about Karen Murphy. He dropped off
it's
some
so
flowers
weird
to her because
because
he's a nice guy.
he was like, well, the Beckets were arrested that night naked. And then he's like, They were implicated in the Three-Eye Drug Ring and prosecuted on distribution charges. Weird poll. I don't know why we have to say that.
Yeah.
Just as well for that, they're in the Michigan justice system. They wouldn't have come out of a cell alive if they'd been in Chicago. Why? Why? Why
Okay.
is that the case?
Is
Sort of
Michigan known for being more harsh than Chicago?
no, apparently more lenient. In Chicago, these white people would have totally been thrown in jail and it would have been locked away.
Right.
Uh, the
That
doom of
seems correct.
the doom of Damocles was taken off my head. And then he says Monica Sells goes into the witness protection program, and I was like, why? Her
Why?
husband is dead, and like, is it for Marconi? I'm confused. Why did that happen? Why are they in the witness protection
Unless
program?
we're just assuming that Victor had so many people that he had created enemies of that she
but
would
he
be in danger
says
from them.
Bob came home,
After he
and
went to a party at UIC. Creep.
yeah, and he's such a creep. And then, what's her name?
Karen's in the hospital, but he dropped off flowers for her because he's a nice guy who cares about
And
women, and they need
Susan.
flowers.
And Susan is going to go on another date with him
Yeah,
because
they went on another date and it went well. He read
yeah.
her article that she sent him that article that she put in the paper, and it was pretty good. It handled things
I do like that
nicely.
he is delivering pizza to Tutu. I did appreciate that.
I mean,
And
he's got to have one good thing that he's doing. And as for
he's
him,
just gonna keep on working.
he's gonna keep on working.
He's just
Remember
Harry
that point when
Coppertone Blackfield.
remember that point when somebody's like, think it might be the kids even that say, "Do you work with the cops?" And he's like, "I might as." He's like, Yes, I do. I pretty much am a cop." It's almost what he says, and it's like, Harry,
No, you're not.
no,
No, you're not, Harry. Oh my gosh. Harry Coppertone Blackfield. No.
Harry Dresden, our king. But seriously, this book is a cautionary tale for
Don't
women.
be mean to Harry.
Don't ever not listen to Harry Dresden.
I hate that's the end of the book, Laura.
It's a cautionary tale.
This is a cautionary tale. Uh yeah, I mean it's a romp. This book is a romp.
Yes, total romp.
It's a feminist text. Uh maybe not.
Uh, we might have to think about it.
We'll talk about it next week when we discuss the characters and themes.
Yes, all the feminist themes.
All the feminist themes of Harry Coppertone Blackfield.
Hmm.
And yeah. Hopefully you guys have enjoyed this plot roundup of the last 3 weeks because I've been having a great time.
And
You and
there's a lot
I,
more coming. We've got
there's
5
so
more books
much
to cover
coming.
this year.
5 more books, guys, just
Well,
this
first
year
we got to finish
alone.
up this book, and then we got 5 more in this year.
But while you're waiting, go over to ourpod.com and check out our
Yeah.
reading schedule. We just released our next bonus episode, which is Talia Dutton is on the podcast to discuss her graphic novel, M is for Monster. That will be
So
after
cute.
we've finished discussing this feminist text, and then we move on to another feminist text. So it's
But like a
very
real
important
one.
stuff.
Like a
But
real
like a
one,
real
though.
one, and it has great representation. And
Yes.
M
Like, that's
is
not a joke. That actually is.
queen. I freaking love M. I love her so much.
Yes.
She's adorable. And Laura caught something in the book that the author said no one had caught yet. So it was really
Yes. I
exciting.
am so proud of myself. But okay. Listen to the
But we
episode
will
to find out.
listen to the episode to find out, but definitely go get that and read it. It's at a lot of libraries. So make sure you're reading
Yes.
M is for Monster. It's a quick graphic novel and it's so cute. Please read it.
Yes. Really, really cute. I love the art in that too.
Oh my gosh, it's such good art. So please make sure you're checking out our reading schedule because we do keep it up to date. And please make sure that you're following us on all social platforms at OWWR Pod. If you feel so inclined, also please throw a 5-star review our way or tell a friend about us. We have a lot of great stuff in the works and we'd love to have more people join. You can find us over on
Yes.
Discord where we're chit-chatting about rom-coms and other things.
Yeah,
And
even
you
just
can
share with your friends, tell them to come join our Discord to hang out. That would be great.
we're tons of fun, we promise. And just join us next week as we do a deeper dive into book 1, Stormfront.
Stormfront.
Bye.
Bye.